Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Strong and Simple podcast. It's Michelle here for another mini-sode. And today we're going to chat about something that many of my one-on-one clients and straight up strong members tend to ask about as they run up against this problem, mostly because most of them are training at home. We also saw this kind of crop up a lot during the shutdown when folks maybe wanted to work or always were used to working out at the gym, then were forced to work out at home and also had very minimal equipment to work with. And this is the question of, how do I make my training sessions appropriately challenging so that I'm continuing to make progress, even if I don't have more weight at home? And I love this question because it's an opportunity to discuss many different ways than just increasing the weight. So when we think about our training sessions and what helps us make progress is that we are continuously challenging ourselves, that we're continuously challenging our muscles. And that does not mean that we need to get like super cuckoo bananas with all these like fancy movements and, strapping one barbell on my back while I'm balancing on a Bosu ball doing a headstand, right? It means we can still do our simple movement patterns that are translating into the real world, our simple, those big 6 movements. But we want to continuously be following that principle of progressive overload. I know it's just a fancy term for continuously challenging our bodies, continuously challenging our muscles. Our bodies are super smart. As we get stronger, our bodies adapt to the stimulus that we've been putting them under, which then makes that exercise easier to do. For example, if you have been doing body weight squats, after a few sessions, 8 body weight squats should feel easier as you get stronger. So you're going to want to increase or change up the challenge level to now meet your new current performance level, okay? We're always resetting and making new goals for ourselves because of this progress that we're making. So because of this, if you have been following a workout plan that has you doing 8 to 10 squats for 3 to 4 sets, and you have been using a 10-pound dumbbell, and now you are on month 3 of doing that particular exercise with that rep range, with that same weight, your body is not going to change anymore because it is not being challenged, okay? So what do we do if you do not have access to heavier weights? So today we are going to discuss 5 ways that you can change in the challenge of your workout, of your exercises that are not necessarily about increasing your weight. Obviously, increasing your weight is a very popular way to increase your challenge point. It's one that most folks know about. But today we're going to talk about 5 other ways that you can work on increasing the challenge of your exercises and workouts without when you don't have access to those heavier weights. And the first thing is pretty simple, but it does have its limitations after a while. Okay, hear me out. This first one is to increase your reps and or sets. So this is going to help you get more volume while you are lifting. So let's go back to that squat example. You have your 12-pound weight. The exercise program says 8 reps with that 12-pound weight. You do 3 sets. So you do your 8 reps, 3 sets of those. Now that's getting easy. You don't have something heavier than the 12-pound dumbbell. You can now do 10 reps for 3 sets. And then maybe you do 4 sets of 10. Then maybe the next week you do 3 sets of 12. then you do 4 sets of 12 so that you're continuously adding a new level of change and an increased amount of stimulus to your muscles to continuously challenge them. Okay, so that is one way of doing things. And I say that this has limitations because if you're using your 12-pound dumbbell, and now let's say you're doing 4 sets of 15 squats with the 12-pound dumbbell, sure, you can go to 20 reps. You could do 5 sets of 20 reps, but eventually, first of all, that's going to get pretty boring. But it's not going to have the same impact on you. And it's going to take a long time to get through your workout if you're just like ad nauseum adding, like eventually you're going to get up to like 100 reps, right? So that's not always necessarily like the best or most time efficient way of adding challenge. So that works for a while. And that might work for a while, especially if you like, let's say you have an 8-pound dumbbell, a 10-pound dumbbell, a 12, and then maybe a 15. So you can kind of cycle through your weights up to that highest weight point. But eventually we're going to want to get a little bit more creative with how we're challenging ourselves. So that's number one, is to increase or manipulate the reps and or sets that you are doing of the exercise. Now, this next one, number two, kind of goes hand in hand. This is another variable you can manipulate, is the amount of rest that you're taking in between your exercises. So if you decrease the amount of rest you're taking between sets, you are going to put your muscles through more work while they're still fatigued, or more fatigued than if you had waited for more time. So think about it this way. You're doing that. You did 10 reps with that 12-pound dumbbell. Your muscles feel a little tired right after the end of that set. Maybe you've been resting for 60 seconds. Maybe today, instead of resting 60 seconds in between sets, you rest for 30. So your muscles haven't had as much time to recover. So they're getting more fatigued because they're already in a state of fatigue before you start the next set. Okay. So, oops. Just pulled my headphones out of the microphone. So, number one, manipulate reps and sets. Number two, decrease the amount of rest you're getting in between your sets. And number three, this is one I really like, is manipulating the tempo of the exercise. So this could look like adding in some eccentric work or isometric work. So the eccentric is the lengthening of the muscle. So think about a bicep curl when you're lowering your arm down. That is the eccentric part of the movement. When you're doing push-ups, lowering your chest down towards the surface that you're on, that's the eccentric. During squats, okay, so we can add some tempo work in. Instead of one count down, one count at the bottom, one count up, we can then do, so let's go back to the bicep curl. So I'm up at the top of my movement and I'm going to count and lower slowly down for a count of 4 and then back up. So we are gaining increased time under tempo, and eccentrics are challenging our muscles in a new way, which is then going to make us stronger when we do them at like that typical 1-1-1 sort of tempo. We can also add in some isometrics at the top of the movement. Think about a bent over row, right? You row that weight up, you get that squeeze at the top, hold it for a count of 3 to 4, and then lower it. You could also do a count at the top of that movement and a slow lowering. So you could also blend an eccentric and an concentric isometric hold. This is going to give your muscles an increased stimulus, more time under tension. It makes that exercise with that particular weight more challenging while you're waiting to either increase your weight or if you don't have access to heavier weights. Okay, so increase weights. Increase sets and reps, decrease your rest time, Play around with the tempo of your exercises is number 3. Number 4, you can have some fun with unilateral movements. And this is especially beneficial for your lower body. And this is where I typically see folks who might have a wide range of weights at home, but your lower body is going to get pretty strong pretty fast. And what was heavy, 6 months ago is probably not going to be very heavy anymore. Like even 40 pounds. And I know for some folks that might sound really intimidating now, but eventually for your deadlifts, you are very likely, depending on what your goals are and where you're at, 40 pounds is, you might be stronger now to be able to utilize more than that 40 pounds, especially for your lower body where those bigger muscles are. So you might be able to grow into your upper body weights a little bit at a slower pace than your than your lower body. So unilateral movements like lunges, like single leg squats, like pistol squats. You can do them to a box. You can do them in B stance. Same thing with single leg deadlifts, B stance deadlifts, where you're able to use a weight that might now be too light for bilateral. So with your feet next to each other parallel, that 40 pounds might not be challenging enough for you anymore bilaterally, but when you now switch that 40 pounds into all of the weight or most of the weight being in one leg, that's going to feel much more challenging. And unilateral leg work is also a lot of fun because you're also working on stability and core strength at the same time. So love me some unilateral work. It can definitely be a great way to help you challenge your lower body. While also we typically have a stronger side of our body. It's typically our dominant side. So for me, my left side is typically a little bit stronger than my right side. So working in the unilateral allows me to work on some of those compensations where my left arm, like let's say during a bench press, sometimes my left arm, my left side, and my left chest tends to like take over in power and compensate to help my right arm, which may not always be as strong. So working on that single arm bench press allows my right arm to get some real work without knowing that the left side is helping out or assisting, right? So that unilateral work has a lot of benefits. So if you're not already incorporating that into your training now, I highly, highly recommend it. So that then leads us to range of motion. And range of motion is another one that's a lot of fun to play around with. First of all, if you're finding that your squats have become too easy, I do encourage you to film yourself and see maybe you're not quite getting to parallel. And this is barring if you have any sort of knee pain or discomfort, right? But we can assume that for many people, as you get stronger, especially as your quads get stronger, that some of that knee pain might, depending on what the cause of the knee pain is in your squats, could start to dissipate. And you might actually, as you get stronger, then also be able to increase your range of motion. I see this a lot with people with their push-ups. Sometimes we're not getting that full range of motion with our chest all the way to the surface that we're working on. So let's say you're doing your push-ups on the floor and you're not quite getting all the way down. A next challenge would be maybe you do less reps, but you're really stretching and getting that full range of motion down to the floor and then pressing up from that floor. You can also elevate your hands up on like a stack of books or a couple of weight plates. So you're getting even a little extra stretch down there, a little extra range of motion to press up. Same thing with things like, split squats or lunges. You might elevate your rear foot, like a Bulgarian split squat, where your rear foot is elevated and now you're able to get a little bit deeper into that split squat. And as you've been doing Bulgarian split squats for a while, you might notice that, oh, maybe I can get that back knee down a little bit further, that front thigh a little closer to parallel, right? You might play around with the height of your bench that you're using for step ups to do a higher step up. So these are all different ways that you can manipulate the exercise to make it a little bit more challenging. And all of these suggestions. So increasing your reps and sets, manipulating tempo, decreasing rest, playing with unilateral movements, increasing your range of motion. So that's 5 different things here, in addition to increasing your weight, that you can play around with to keep progressing and challenging yourself with your workouts. Now, you don't have to do all of the things all at once for every exercise, right? This is where being thoughtful and really planning out your workouts in a program that is, 4 to 6 weeks. And then maybe you then plan out the 6 to 8 weeks after that for a total of 3 to 4 months. This is where having a coach to help as they see that you're getting stronger, knowing what equipment you have access to, can then put their knowledge and expertise to work to help manipulate some of these other variables to make sure that you are still having that progressive overload so that you continue to progress. So hopefully this was helpful for you. These are just, 5 things that you can do at home or at the gym. I know this is a busy time of year at the gym. Sometimes you don't have as much, like a lot of the equipment could be used by other people. Like maybe you're used to using the Smith machine or the barbells at your gym, and now it's really busy at the gym and the Smith machine and or the barbells are not available. So now you're looking to use dumbbells, right? So you might need to get a little creative with making sure your workout is still challenging. So hopefully this was useful for you. I would love to hear from you if it was, or if you have questions, or if you have any other suggestions. Always love to hear from you. So you can email us at strongandsimplepodcast@gmail.com, or message us over on Instagram, again, Strong and Simple Podcast. And hopefully this was useful for you. And we have a great episode coming up for you on Friday, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for always being here, for taking a listen. And if it's your first episode you're listening to, thank you so much. Be sure you go and follow us on whatever platform you're listening on so that you never miss a new episode. We have episodes that drop every Tuesday and Friday. So be sure to make sure you are following us, and we will see you next time.